Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov, Chagurim Sameach, lots to be celebrating. But actually, I want to turn to a cultural moment that we all know. And the cultural moment is Tevye waking up in the middle of the night and saying, Golda, I had a dream. And my dream is that our daughter, Fruma Sarah, first of all, came in the dream, says Tevye. Fruma Sarah came and told me our daughter cannot marry the butcher, she must marry the tailor. And it's the famous scene in Fiddler on the Roof when Tevye is trying to figure out how does he tell his wife that he just agreed that his daughter is not going to marry the good match that they arranged, the butcher, Laser Wolf, but in fact is going to be marrying the man she loves, the tailor, Mottel. And so he wakes up and says, I had a dream, and we know he didn't have a dream. This is his way of telling her. And we think, wow, it's wonderful, it's Broadway, it's drama, it's excellent, but it's in the Torah. Because when we look in the Torah, when Jacob needs to tell his wives that he wants to go home, he says to them, I had a dream, and God came to me in the dream, and God told me in the dream, and then there's this whole thing that the Torah never told us happened. He didn't have the dream. And so dreams start to begin to manifest themselves in our text, they manifest themselves in the Torah, they manifest in our culture. Dreams begin to go everywhere. When we start to look at Judaism, we're seeing dreams. And so we, of course, would ask, well, what are they? How do we view dreams, especially from the ancient world? Before we get to all the modern stuff, what does the ancient world say about dreams? Because it's all over our ancient text. So the Talmud tells us that dreams are mechanisms of delivery. They're simply the mechanism through which messages are delivered. According to Rav Chisda, as long as a dream is not interpreted, it is a letter left unread. These are messages we are sending, and we want to interpret them because we want to read. Try walking past a letter on your counter with your name on it, the envelope sealed. You're not going to open it and read it and see what's in there. And according to the Talmud, that's what a dream is. And every night we get mail. We get mail in our dreams. So what are we supposed to do with all of that? And clearly the answer we're being told is read it. Read the mail, read the dream. There's the key. Read the dream. Don't remember the dream. It's not a memory thing. Read the dream. Solve it. The Kabbalists then turn to us and say, actually, when we are sleeping, our minds are at rest. Because the mind controls the body. When the body is at rest, the mind is at rest. The soul, however, never needs rest. The soul, therefore, takes that opportunity while we are asleep to reconnect with the infinite. And because the infinite is limitless, that's what happens. Our dreams become limitless. And what we get is we get dreams that have no limits within them and therefore no limits of meaning. Every dream is layered infinitely, is packed infinitely, because it is the tour of the soul when the soul is reconnecting with the infinite. And we have it in our prayer when we wake up in the morning and we say, thank you, God, my soul is back, all is well, because it visited with you. And so it took all of that tour and then it sent me letters, and the letters are the dreams. So when we look at it, we realize that dreams are actually the essence of multiple truth. Because if a dream is the connection with the infinite, there cannot be one meaning. There cannot be one way to read the dream. There will be limitless ways to read the dream. And they will all be correct. They will all be right. They're all truth. So now we have multiple truth, and now actually we have choices. What do we do with all that truth, all those levels of meaning? So the Torah tells us, you see, the power is never in the dream. It's never in the dreamer. It's always in the dream interpreter. That's where the power sits. The power of the letter is who reads the letter, not who wrote the letter. The power of the letter is the meaning the reader will take. Who is reading it, who is interpreting it. That's the power of the dream. Not the dreamer, not the dream interpreter. And that's where we get to this week's Parsha, because that's what's going on over and over. We look at Pharaoh's dreams, and then we look at the theme of dreams, because Joseph and his life surrounds dreams. Everything about him is dream communication, and it's getting him into trouble. And the Torah immediately introduces it to us, and we're going to start with his first dream. And we know all these dreams. The first dream, he comes to his brothers, and he says, you know, I had a dream. They're intrigued. He says, we're out in the field together. We're binding sheaves together. And then my bind of sheaf, my stands up, my wheat, your wheat surrounds my wheat and bows down to me. And the brothers, of course, listen to this, and we were already told in the text they hate him. And they hate him because he's being played the favorite. And now he tells them the dream, and they turn to him and they says, I hate you even more now. You really think we're going to serve you? That you're going to be the leader and we're going to serve you? The brothers have interpreted the dream as a dominance dream. That in fact he was telling them, I will dominate you one day. And they hate him even more, says the text. So what does Joseph do? It tells us that Joseph then has a second dream, and now goes back to the brothers and his father and says, I had another dream. And in this dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing to me. And now his father gets mad at him and says, you really think that dream will come true? And we're reading it thinking, what's wrong with him? The first dream was a disaster. They hated you more. Now you're telling them the second dream? Keep it to yourself. You're having strange dreams? Why are you telling them? And not only the first one, the second one, what do you think is going to happen? And exactly what we fear is what happens. Jacob gets mad at him and says, that's horrible. He berates him. He says, you really think that your mother and I, the sun and the moon, your mother and I, and your brothers will bow down to you? That's what you think is going to happen? And actually, that moment that Jacob says what he says unlocks the whole thing, because he's wrong. And that's where we suddenly realize, oh my God, he got it wrong. It can't possibly mean that Rachel is going to bow down to him with Jacob, because Rachel's already dead. That cannot be the meaning of the dream. And the moment we say, wait a minute, you mean the interpretations could be wrong? That in fact they're hearing it wrong? That's not what those dreams mean? And now we can go back and we can say, oh my goodness, then what exactly is going on? In the first dream, if we look at it with the symbols of the ancient world, and we say, Joseph is saying to his brothers, I had a dream. You and I were together in the fields, working together in the fields. Well, first of all, that never happened, because the Torah told us that his brothers never allowed him to come with them. They hated him. And so his father kept Joseph with him. So this dream of, I had a dream, we did stuff together. We worked together. We were equals. We were out in the field. And then you surrounded my wheat. And surrounding it is a sign of protection. These are his older brothers. He's saying, you surrounded me. You protected me and bowed to me. And where they heard servitude, the ancient world says, we bow to each other to welcome each other. We see it all over the Torah. We see it all over the ancient world. That's how people welcome each other. They bow to each other. So Joseph's dream was not a dream saying, look, I'm gloating. I'm going to lead you one day. Joseph's dream was, I wish we could be equal working in the field. You would welcome me. You would protect me like brothers. It backfired. So he tells them the second dream, hoping maybe they'll get it. Except what he doesn't realize is the dreams are prophetic. That in fact, the wheat bowing the brother, it's got nothing to do with the brothers. It's got to do with famine. That's why it's wheat. It's got to do with the fact that he will be able to feed others. That's why they're bowing to him. These are prophetic dreams. And the second dream makes the most sense prophetically, because the sun, the moon, and the stars are gods in Egypt. The sun god is Ra. The moon god is Khonsu, and the stars are demigods. His dream is telling him, all of Egypt will be bowing to you. The gods of Egypt will be bowing to you. You will lead. But he doesn't see it. Of course he doesn't see it. They don't see it. Nobody sees it, because these are prophecies. The Torah tells us when he sees it. It says he's in Egypt. He's attained the highest position. He's feeding Egypt. The brothers show up, and then it says, and he remembers the dreams. Because he realizes at that moment they're prophecies. So it seems like everybody got it wrong. All those dreams he was hated for got it wrong, because the dream interpreters were getting it wrong. And then the Torah moves on to the two guards in the prison, the baker and the wine steward and on and on. And they have dreams. And Joseph comes and interprets that dreams because Joseph is clever. We never hear his dreams again. He learned you don't share your dreams. It gets you in trouble. Where is the power? The power is in the interpreter. So he goes into prison and interprets dreams. And when we look at his interpretation of those dreams, they're logical. He's not doing anything, it's all logic. You look at what he says, and you could have done it. It's perfectly logical. And then what happens is that sets him up for Pharaoh and Pharaoh's dreams. And now we're watching the dreams escalate. The stakes are getting higher. He stands in front of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, I had a dream. I was standing on the Nile, and out of the Nile come these big, fat, gorgeous cows. And they come out and they start grazing. And as they're grazing, out of the Nile come the skinny cows. And the skinny cows come, eat the fat cows. You'd never have known the fat cows were there. And Pharaoh's just unbelievably upset by the whole thing. And then it says he has a second dream, and the second dream is that healthy stalk with 7 big, rich ears of grain, and then right away are sprouted 7 little squinty, scrawny ones who are devouring the big ones. It's the same dream. He keeps having this recurring dream. I'll grant him it's not the nicest dream, but he's panicked. He sees something we're not seeing. He's panicked. And anyone who's talking about the dreams, not resolving it for him, he's still panicked. So then we look at it and we think, why is he terrified? And we look at that first dream of cows. The Nile always represents Egypt. He's standing on the Nile. He is ruling over Egypt. Out come cows. Great cows who are harvesting, they're eating, it's all lovely and wonderful, that's Egypt. But then what are these skinny cows? The skinny cows, actually, one could make an excellent argument, it's the invasion of the Hyksos. The Hyksos invaded Egypt. They were cattle herders. They dominated Egypt for a short time. They took over the government. This is a terrifying dream to Pharaoh. It's an invasion dream. It means that the Hyksos are going to come back. They're going to take over Egypt. They're going to devour Egypt, and you'll never have seen those big cows again. There'll be no memory of Egypt left. He's terrified. Joseph comes in and says, no, it's famine. And we almost hear Pharaoh say, oh, God, thank God, it's only famine. Famine I can deal with. He's relieved. And so he rewards Joseph for that interpretation, because everyone else must have been telling him it's invasion. And so he keeps having the same nightmare over and over. So we look at it, and of course, our sages are going to ask, was Joseph right? Or did Joseph make it happen? What happens? What's the power of the dream interpreter? Is it that they got it right, or that they caused it to happen? And when we look at that, we head to Genesis Rabbah, and Genesis Rabbah gives us the verse that talks about it, because it says in Torah, as he interpreted it, so it was, meaning he described it or he made it happen. Which one? It's immediately followed by a midrash that says, Rabbi Eliezer had a woman come to her and say, I had a dream. And she tells him the dream, and she says, in my dream, the upper loft of my house was split open. And Rabbi Eliezer says, oh, that's wonderful. You're going to have a son. And then it says she conceives, and she has a baby boy. And a year later, she comes back to him and says, I had a dream, upper place, split open. He goes, oh, that's wonderful, another baby. And then, in fact, she conceives, has another baby. Third time, she has a dream. She goes to find Rabbi Eliezer. She can't find him. She finds his students, and she says, I had a dream, upper loft, split open. And they look at her and they say, oh, my God, your husband's going to die. And then it says, within a year, her husband dies. And she's mourning, and Rabbi Eliezer comes and says, what happened? And the students tell him what happened, and he turns to his students and he says, you killed that man. You interpreted the dream that way. You've killed that man. And the midrash is saying, the dream interpreter plants the event, opens the possibility, does more than interpret, but actually says, here's the level of truth in the dream I am convincing you is what is going to happen. So to some degree, there is ownership of what happens in the dream interpreter. We shape the events of our lives. We don't simply stumble through them. We are part of the team that shapes it. We We share our dreams, and when we do, we entrust others to choose the truth we will hear. And the truth we will hear is the one we will pursue. We are handing over all that power the moment we share our dreams. The Torah, the Talmud, philosophers, everything in Judaism tells us that the world we see cannot be read only one way. There is no absolute truth. It doesn't exist. The skill is the interpretation. The skill is to read the event. The skill is to know that the meaning will lie in how I read it. There is no meaning in the event itself. The dream is only unlocked by the interpreter. Dreams in our text aren't exploits into fantasy land. They're letters that we send ourselves. They're written by our soul, and they're addressed to our mind. Freud was right when he said, you want to understand what's going on in you? Head to your dreams. You'll see what's going on inside you. But I have to say, as right as Freud was, and as much as has been developed in the modern world, I think we're always going to end up, at the end, with Golda saying to Tevye, tell me what you dreamt, I'll tell you what it meant. Shabbat shalom.